pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone. Here we'll go with public comment. Do we have any public comment to start off with? Okay, no public comment. We'll go on to Commissioner's report. Anything to add or comment on?
Had a couple conversations, one with Dana about some road issues on Price Road, one with Brian Hone about employees, and internet conversations with several businesses and people in town.
I have also been talking with a lot of different businesses and folks in town. But the big thing is tomorrow, there's a 12:15 end-of-life planning at the senior center. And I attended the Board of Crime Control, Crime Prevention Conference last week. That was excellent. I'll be sharing just some details a little bit later in the meeting, but we had a couple of deputies there. We had actually quite a good turnout for Broadwater County. I think I counted 6 or 7, for sure 6. 2 from our deputy's office, our sheriff's office. So it was a good conference. And that's it from me.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of phone calls, comments from the public. Just business as usual. Okay, we'll go ahead with COS. Have you got a COS for us today?
I do. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the COS for the Placer Cemetery. The retracement and then the creation of cemetery plots. And since the cemetery plots created its exemptions today, so see if you guys want to approve your survey.
Absolutely, I move to approve said survey.
I'll second the motion.
Is there moved and second to approve the cemetery proposal? Any discussion? No more discussion, we'll do a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
And then I have an invoice for the COS review for the Centerville and the Placer for the planning department. And our invoice. So do I just give these to you, or?
We could, the chair could take it up to the accounting
Take it
department.
All right.
to, Michelle will put it on a claim, this is, okay.
And then I will leave these with you guys, and it's ready for signatures and to be filing upstairs with Ann, then with all the documents.
Fantastic. I'll give that back to you to give to Franklin to take upstairs. And you'll leave that with Annie then?
Yes, I can
Upstairs?
drop it
Here with the
off
total
upstairs.
All right.
See that, and then I'll throw it together.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Franklin, I think you missed the minutes. We have minutes here from September 25 and October 2, and gave those to me so they wouldn't get lost.
What's that?
That's to take it up and put on the coin.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna do it. September 25th and October 2nd. Is there any additions or corrections to these that were sent out?
Move to approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Move and second to okay the minutes for September 25th and October 2nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
These really should be shared with the public, what they are. Pass that back to the chairman.
This is yours here. Well, for anybody who's interested, department codes have been implemented for the copier in the clerk recorder's office. Department Commissioner, your code number is 9270. Enter your number, no password necessary. Press the ID button, make your copies, press the ID button. Copies will be charged out to your department at 5 cents a page. So now you know. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the rural Montana. I think most of you get that, so it's here if anybody wanted, anybody's on vigilante, they come monthly. Okay, we're running just a few minutes, I will go ahead with the July journal entries. Everyone's had a chance to go through and look at.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to accept the journal entries?
I'll make a motion to accept the July journal entries.
A second.
Moved and seconded to appoint the July journal entries as sent and everybody has looked at. We're going to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. I'll read this out from Gallatin County. This is the Williams and Meriden Bridge. Dear Chairman, so per our meeting on July 26, 2017, when it was proposed for Gallatin County to be the lead in preparing an application with TSEP Engineering Planning Grant. The plan is to propose replacement of either the Williams or Meridian bridges. At the meeting, it was proposed and accepted that each county would contribute $5,000 for a portion of the cost. We are in the process of submitting the TSEP Planning Grant application and soliciting engineering firms. We will need each county's contribution or commitment to pay prior to the approval of the grant award or awarding of the engineering contract. We are attaching an invoice for Broadwater County's portion of the costs associated with the engineering study for Meridian and William Bridges. Please contact if you have any questions. Don Seifert, Commission Chairman. Those we get, these are a couple, the one doesn't affect Broadwater County, but the Meridian Bridge does. And so as this letter stated, they're doing a study on it, stuff like that, so,
But are you doing mail right now? Is that mail?
yes.
Okay, I need to know that that's mail. We're not going to the county phone internet?
No, not yet. There was a few minutes, that's why I went ahead with this in here. So we probably should have a motion
make a motion to pay the claim to Gatlin County for $5,000 for the Meridian Bridge project.
I'll second the motion.
Who just second to pay Gallatin County the 5,000, the starting and engineering for the Meridian Bridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
For the
Uh,
motion, what's the proposal on where the money should come from?
Give us that.
I don't
Bridge,
think you can probably keep it how you think.
Okay.
No, I need that so I can give it to Michelle to make out a claim, unless you wanna give it to her later.
It still needs to go through the process, Franklin, after it's, because this is a voted item, not just a regular
But I'll
business
need it
claim.
back so she gets it all written down.
It actually needs to stay with the clerk and recorder until it's copied, and then it can go to you. We've gone
Whatever,
through this
whatever,
already.
that's fine. I don't know, probably out of the bridge fund, I suppose, or else, built on it. Any other suggestions or comments on it?
I would think we take the money out of Pill. And what it's for the engineering for the process to apply for the grant. For TSEP grant, and then what they'll do is they will, if they do this project, they'll open it up to bids from all three counties. For engineering and for everything for it, so everybody will have a shot at
Sounds good. I agree with the Pilt, take it out of the bridge fund, we need to talk to Dana and include him. And this isn't something he foresaw to budget for.
So that's a second then?
I already seconded before.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's moved and second to pay for this to Gallatin County out of the Pilt fund.
Out of Pilt or?
Pilt.
Okay.
Any more discussion? No more discussion, go to a vote, all in favor?
it.
Aye.
Motion passed. Just a couple minutes ahead, we'll go ahead with our 10:15 county phone. So and Scott Lester from Blackfoot,
Yep, right here.
you have the floor now.
Okay, sure. Well, thanks for having us out again. As you received, first of all, Scott Lester, Blackfoot. As you have all received a letter here this last week from my executive team, as well as an updated agreement that corresponds with that letter, basically saying that we are willing to meet you on your requests per the letter sent out June 15th by the county to Blackfoot, requesting several items. Of those items that you requested we respond to, we were able to accommodate all but one, and that one item being a blanket out clause to the agreement that you requested would not be acceptable, just simply because it would negate the purpose of there being an agreement. So while we can't agree to that request, we can agree to have a wired backhaul of 10 gig capacity, and when you said 10 gig minimum fiber service, that's what I'm referring to. You also requested that the 10 gigs be used to move the sheriff's office from the current service, and we we're comfortable providing the service for not just the sheriff's office, but the county as a whole and the entire community. You also brought up concerns about 50 megs being included in your contract for the county, and we agreed that our original proposal was pretty close to the same dollar amount that you're paying now for current services, and it was based off of having about 5 times the bandwidth that you currently have. So that was 50 megs, but that is substantially lower than what we see with most organizations of your size. So we upgraded that amount in the agreement to 100 megs. You also requested that up to 1 gigabyte of data be available to the county. We, in our response, said that you could have up to 1 gigabyte of data to the county, but that would vastly exceed your usage in our opinion. So while it's available, we did not quote it. So again, let's see, the out clause is the one aspect of the agreement that we couldn't agree to. Let me just reiterate what you guys said. Finally, it is a 5-year contract. Is your requirement for consideration to move Broadwater County? We will need an out clause to guarantee there's fair competition regarding the backhaul and service is adequate for the county needs as well as our community overall. So what I would say is we cannot offer an out clause. We would not have agreements if we didn't require some form of commitment. An out clause would insinuate that you could pull out at any time, in which case we've spent the money to bring you service and we're no longer able to collect revenues on that service because of the reasons that you cited. What I would say is that we have a standard service agreement that goes out with all of our agreements. Not all carriers offer that level of service agreement, in that if you have outages, we do not bill you for the time that you're down, and we give you credits for time that you were down. Some carriers don't give you that. Some major carriers don't. So we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, that we can only bill you for service that's turned up, and we can only bill you for service that's working. So we have, I would say, standard provisions in there that protect you as a customer. So that specifically, I guess that specifically addresses your concerns relating to you as a customer. Now, as it relates to you, your concerns for fair competition, what I would say is that is a little bit outside the scope of our offer to the county. We cannot guarantee that we can partner with another carrier as part of your agreement. If we do, then our arrangement with them could easily be $1 for whatever service it is, because we're contractually obliged to contract with them. I can tell you that 10 gigs is way beyond what we're going to need, and that we would be interested in looking at other uses for that bandwidth. And knowing that we don't target residential customers, we would be very interested in talking to folks that do for the usage of some of that bandwidth. Are we going to give it away? No. But are we going to charge so much for it that no one would want to buy it? Probably not either. I can't make any promises regarding what would happen, because it's outside of the scope of this agreement, and it's really, you can't have a proper common negotiation between 3 parties. But I can say that we are very interested in finding other uses for that additional bandwidth. So when you talk about fair competition, doing business with Blackfoot brings another competitor to the market, and it makes it more competitive in the market. So as we look to do things with that additional bandwidth, it's likely that we'll look for someone who can utilize that, serving markets that we don't target. It's not that we won't serve them, it's that it's not our focal customer segment. Our focal customer segment, as I've said all along, is enterprise customers. So, and I wanted to share with you guys a white paper that we recently generated that talks a little bit about our customer satisfaction. And we had this white paper done by the Pivot Group out of Portland, Oregon. They're a highly respected, independent group that does statistical analysis and surveys in markets. And we've used this data for years internally to make business decisions about where to invest, and to invest in infrastructure or customer service and what markets to go after. And one of the big findings that they had was that we scored significantly higher than other carriers in Montana for customer service, for healthfulness of billing staff, customer service, technical service and support, and field service and support. We scored significantly higher marks in 2015 and 2016 than other carriers. We score especially high with enterprise customers. So the bigger customers, the better. We do a good job with enterprise customers. And that, as I told you before, has been a strategic focus for over a decade at our company, to do a better job with business customers in the state of Montana. So I'm happy to share this with you guys.
Thank you.
And what I can say is that, we are excited about the prospects of coming to Townsend, but we've been working on, and we've known kind of all along that we were going to need Broadwater County to make it make sense for us to build the infrastructure to come to this community. So I can tell you at this point, we've done all we can to win you guys over. I mean, we really want your business. We want to take care of you. But I don't think there's much more we can do. I can tell you that just from a bandwidth standpoint, from a capacity standpoint within our organization, we've spent 6 months just in conversation with Broadwater County. And, at this point, it's kind of, okay, if they vote for it today, then we'll move forward and we'll research it. And we will figure out if it makes sense for us to build all the infrastructure. We'll do all the engineering, and we'll have a commitment back to them, or an answer back to them by the end of the year. And if they vote no, we're not going to work anymore on the project in Townsend. So it's been very clearly communicated, both in the letter to you as to me. This is kind of our last effort to make it work. Projects like T-Mobile are that were in the independent record this morning are part of the reason why we're stretched thin, and we are expanding across the state right now. We're building infrastructure into all the communities in the state as best we can. Townsend's an especially tough place to reach, and so it requires a special effort. And we don't believe at this point that T-Mobile is going to be bringing us here anytime soon. So we are, but we're a for-profit company that's a co-op. We have shareholders, but our shareholders are our customers. We invest all of our money back into the state of Montana, one way or the other, or Eastern Idaho, where we also have assets. So we're building infrastructure here. We're not sending money off to Wall Street or to our shareholders or to the mutual funds. It's staying in the community. We're hiring people in these communities, and we're building infrastructure to serve these communities. So we really are the local option that results in higher quality customer service. The white paper and the numbers prove that. We've had a dozen people come out over the course of this process and testify that they're aware of our service, or they've had our service, or they know somebody who's had our service, and have not heard contrary evidence to what I'm saying. It does not mean that we're perfect. It does not mean that we don't make mistakes, but I can say that we have a commitment, being a local company, that goes beyond just getting your dollar. And interestingly, this project has brought me back to my stomping grounds. Being from Helena, I've had a lot of opportunity to spend time with my parents while I've been in town, so it's been nice. So I appreciate the opportunity to work on this and spend some time with you folks in this community, and I hope that today you guys vote to accept our proposal. Be happy to field any questions that you have.
You have a question or comments to Scott?
I have some questions on the agreement. You sent that to me, Mike. Is it the two-page letter and then the big proposal looks like this?
Yeah, the two-page letter is just to accompany that, to explain it, to explain our response in that agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just kind of going through this, as I understand it, what you're saying is that if the county agrees to the proposal, then you will basically do scoping. I'm looking at the bottom of page 2 of your.
Yep. You have the additional terms and conditions. That part is normally blank in any of our standard agreements, and
So what are you committing to here? You're committing to,
we're committing to, by the end of this year, this calendar year, having engineered all the sites for the customers, including the county and the other businesses and organizations that have signed up with us, and done a final analysis to make sure that it makes economic sense for us to come. Now, I can tell you, at this point, we know for certain, without the county's business, it does not make economic sense. However, with the county's commitment, it looks like it will make economic sense. But we do need to do the actual engineering to determine exactly the costs, the man hours, the equipment, the routes, and that's just such a huge commitment that we want to make sure that we've got the business case made before we make it.
so what would be the timeline of actually providing the services then?
Second quarter of 2018. So we believe we can start turning up service the beginning of, or the end of the first quarter 2018, and potentially have service for everyone live by the end of the second quarter of 2018. So that's our time frame at this point.
So when does the actual billing kick in?
It kicks in when service is live. So it wouldn't kick in for any individual customer until all their phones are turned up, until all their service is live and working. And that's our standard, that's in our standard language. And again, if the service goes down, we cannot bill for it. So that's all in our standard master service agreement, general terms and conditions.
I would recommend we put that in. I'm not seeing that anywhere actually in the agreement, that there's the deadline for you to provide services and then the costs start upon providing the services. So what happens if we say yes, your engineering's done by January 1, and then we're in the third quarter and services haven't been provided for whatever reason, some like earthquake wouldn't apply because there's that clause, but some engineering problems or whatever. I mean, when does our current service expire?
I don't believe that we're gonna be able to make that commitment. I just tell you right now, we're not gonna be able to make a commitment in writing to a specific date in 2018 because of the amount of construction, because of the having to work with CenturyLink to put our equipment on either ends of the fiber backhaul. There's potential delays that could happen that are completely outside of our hands.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that our agreements cover you we don't bill until the services are live. So you'll have your current service providers until we can provide service. We have every incentive to make that happen sooner than later, in that we start recouping the costs that we're incurring now, let alone our engineering costs and then our construction costs, until our customer service is live. So
Sure.
we have every incentive to move that date as early as possible.
No, I understand that. So when does our current service contract expire?
For Connect,
Yeah.
the end of this year, so it'd be about the same time, 6/30/17. For Clearfly, we have 2 years left, and for CenturyLink, we have 21 months left.
Okay, so so obviously that's us problem of how to figure out how we're paying for you and picking up your service while we also have these other contracts we have to deal with.
That's correct.
So my concern is that if we don't have a date certain, even if commissioners are comfortable with that level of uncertainty, it still requires us to have to deal with these other providers that we're transitioning from.
And certainly, there'll be communication on our part that you know, hey, we're a month away or 2 months away from having service live. And so you can start to make those transitions. I can tell you that in the carrier world, no one turns off your phones when you don't renew your contract. Typically, you'll see some rate increases, but not always. Blackfoot doesn't do that. We don't rate increase folks that are out of contract. They just continue on their previous rates.
Right, right.
So I'm not concerned that you won't have service, but certainly the more agreements that you're out of contract, the less early term fees you would have to pay to get into contract with us. And the later into 2018 that we may be, the less early term fees you may have.
Okay, so is this the total, is this the monthly bill, the 3563?
It is, yep.
And that's, so in your letter you refer to $11.50 a month, that's a sub-item within this, is that accurate?
In my letter to you,
The front, the cover letter from you. I'm looking at the paragraph that begins third, Blackfoot revised.
oh, okay, yeah, I'm just talking specifically about just the data portion of your agreement.
Right,
So yeah, just the data portion, which are the first two items of your description of service on your agreement. Those two added together.
okay. And then, so what is that, how does that compare to our current total?
I have a spreadsheet here, and Corey, I'll give you one, and then if everybody else wants one, I'll just put a pile up here. You're welcome to it, it's just an at a glance. I'll give you this one, it has snapshots of the websites. And then if you guys wanna just pass these around. So it has how many months are left, Corey, that's where I got that from.
Okay.
And then in the bottom, it has, the difference would be, right now, we're at $34,956 total. This switch would take us, and that's per year, $29.13 per month. This switch would take us to $42,756 for the year, the $35.63 per month, an increase of almost $8,000 a year, about $650 a month.
So was the CenturyLink an alternative proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and I'm hoping to hear from them as well today, and Montana Internet if they're here too.
Okay. So
I guess I have a question on, and I've been through this agreement, I know these are standard, but what I haven't seen anywhere in the agreement is actually what you would do that would breach the agreement. Ordinarily, when you define, it's defined what we would do to breach, which is fail to pay. I haven't seen anywhere here where it says this is how you would breach. So the concern is if we do a 5-year agreement, there's nothing in the contract where we are 2 years in and suddenly things are going very badly. I don't see that defined in the agreement, and that's generally something that always is defined. So I think it's an easy fix, but I do see it as a fix that needs to happen. There's a few others that are, I think I got this Thursday, and I basically spent some time yesterday going over it, so, there's a few other things about the contract that I think, it's written from a business standpoint of, you know, it's a good contract for us, but I see there's some things here that I would recommend not signing it right now until those things are adjusted.
yeah. Okay. So what are the other things?
I don't understand paragraph 6 of the agreement. It talks about data networking and telecommunications equipment. It appears to say that we purchase equipment from you. And then we grant you a security interest in the equipment. And then if we breach, you can take the equipment back.
Okay, so it just says that you'll provide the premises for the installation of equipment, so you'll have a DMARC room here, and then we'll be able to install our equipment in in your DMARC room, and then if you, to bring you service, and that if, in the case that you breach, it's our equipment in your DMARC room, we would remove our equipment.
But then define some equipment as customer equipment. That's what I'm not clear on.
The customer shall provide all necessary premises for installation of the provider equipment, including necessary electrical service and any customer-owned equipment, and hereby grants provider and its personal access to, over, and through such premises for installation and removal of equipment. So, I mean, certainly there's gonna be racks and things like that that are, you know, furniture associated with your DMARC that we're gonna put our equipment into. And what we're saying there is that we would need the use of those racks, because we would not necessarily install our own if there wasn't room. So, I mean, that's,
I maybe, you know, obviously I'm not a telecom guy, but it just seems like some of that equipment at some point, we pay for it, it becomes customer equipment, and then it says we grant you a security interest that you can take all that, including customer equipment, back if we fail to make a payment. I just need clarity on what that means. I don't know that we're gonna be able to solve it this instant, but,
okay. Well, I can tell you, this is our standard master service agreement, signed by hundreds of customers a month around the state. We have above average customer service scores. I can tell you that I don't think we'll have any problem providing clarity, but in terms of a rework of it, I think it's extremely unlikely at this point, just because I've already engaged my legal team kind of to the full capacity that I could. So in terms of, you know, an explanation, a reading of it, I can tell you that we issue credits, you know, every month to folks that his service is down. And so I can tell you that whether you feel it's represented in here or not, there, you know, the definition of breach in our opinion is if service is not working, you're not paying for it.
right, but I mean, it has to be in the contract, or it's not defined as a contract.
Right. We also have a standard service level agreement, which is offered to all customers, that is on our website, that I believe goes on and further covers all of our services that we offer. So it's possible that what you're concerned about is covered by that, but I can provide that to you as well.
What's it called?
Service level agreement, it's called an SLA. You know, one thing I can say is that it's easy to take our offer and shop it around and see if we can get a better deal. And there's been 4 or 5 months to do that since we started this process. When we originally came to the table, we were offering you roughly 5 times the internet that you had for the same amount of money, or slightly less than you were currently paying. So that there's, let's say, new offers from our competitors on the table doesn't surprise me, because there's been a significant amount of time. And as time drags on, I imagine this process could continue. But it would be amongst the existing carriers, because we have, as an organization, kind of invested as much time as we can. And we've seen this kind of with other business customers in the community, our competitors going out and saying, well, we can do better for you now. Now we can do better for you. Now that Blackfoot is here talking to you, we can do better. But unless they're here talking to us, we haven't done it. So I'm glad, I hope that we're at least the impetus for positive movement forward in this community. I truly believe that bringing us here as a competitor and keeping us here as a competitor will help keep all your options on the table. We'll give you the most options, not just the county, but all of the businesses and organizations. So, you guys have any other questions or concerns?
Is your 8 Mile radio, operation still part of this?
Our plans to serve the Elkies is absolutely part of this. Yep, absolutely part of this. In fact, I've got a letter from her. I'd like to read to all you folks. That 8 Mile radio actually has a capacity to go 17 miles. So we can service customers up to 17 miles that we have line of sight from Townsend. So I'm going to read this letter from Della Elke, Mark and Della Elke. Hello, I found out a while ago that Blackfoot Internet proposal is on the county agenda again. I'm not able to rearrange my schedule to be there. I'm hoping you may be willing to take a few minutes to consider an updated request from me on behalf of our companies with respect to the Blackfoot Internet proposal. As I mentioned before, we do have 3 accounts with Montana Internet. Since their promise earlier this summer to improve service in our area, I've seen spotty improvements in my service at home office. They are still not able to provide me with the internet service at our building north of town. We ended up getting an internet package at that facility through GlobalNet. It is barely adequate for sending emails and accessing our Helena server, especially when there are multiple people at our location attempting to do so. But it does help, and we are thankful to have it. As you know, our plan was to move our Missoula shop in its entirety to Townsend, bringing a few families from Missoula, and employing several more Broadwater County residents once we were completely moved. Our deadline for that move is the end of 2018. If there is not a plan in place, like the plan that Blackfoot is proposing, for a highly functioning internet service to be accessible by our facility north of town, we will have to rethink our move. The operation of our plasma cutting table is highly dependent on dependable, high-capacity internet service. I understand that a county-wide decision cannot be made based on the needs of one business. That being said, I find it hard to imagine that our businesses are the only ones that have limited functionality and are forced to conduct part or all of their business someplace else due to the constraints of a limited internet presence in Broadwater County. As I last understood, the hospital is in desperate need of an improved internet telephone service as well. I hope you are able to keep our needs in mind as you make this important decision. I appreciate your time. I also want to share the conversation I had with the hospital the other day. They looked at a new offer from CenturyLink as well. This offer showed up as a result of our offer to them. And all of a sudden there was a new deal on the table. But it doesn't work for them. It clearly does not work for them. And they're not willing to sign it until they know whether or not Blackfoot's coming to town. Because they would like to use our services. Because it is a better fit for them. And it does save them money over time. And it does increase their bandwidth so that they can get their imaging out. So they're another customer that would really like to see us come. Because they'll benefit as well. So it's possible that reworked, offers from other carriers has gotten your bill down below ours. However, for same services, but it's that's possible because you've had 4 or 5 months to show them our deal and say, can you do better? And of course they can. So I guess what I'd like to say is, in all fairness, our deal offered you 5 times the internet originally for the same amount of money. And for roughly $400 or $500 more, 10 times the internet. Our original offer was very fair. Took you down to 2 carriers or 2 service providers instead of 4 or 5, and allowed you guys to not have the uncertainty of long distance bills anymore, doing away with any long distance charges. It was fair and it was transparent. And I would like to say that, with I would like to ask you guys that with satisfactory legal review, that you, so that there's good comprehension of our agreements, that you guys vote to accept them, to sign our agreement today. And I guess I'll sit down and let the public comments go on, but I'm happy to take questions throughout the process or respond to any more feedback.
Any other questions or comments for, go ahead, Steve.
Just on behalf of my local business, we've had internet service for quite some time now. It's got to where the bandwidth is shared so much, we're unable to do standard business. If one computer's at work, the other computers have to be idle on the internet, because our bandwidth is shared and diminished so much that we need something done. I encourage you to go with this. I think the business community needs it.
A couple of points. In today's paper, the teaming between Blackfoot and T-Mobile shows that a major company in this country is looking at Blackfoot, and they wouldn't do that if they weren't a reliable company and on top of their game. Second, in today's paper was the conference in Missoula between the lawmakers and industry about the need for broadband in rural America, and especially rural Montana, the lack of it on tribal lands as well as in many of our counties, like this one. And we need to get somebody with a foot in the door so things start to happen. And then also in the Townsend paper, the real estate turnover, and commented in that article was the need for broadband, because more people work from home now, and we could have an even better, more functional environment. We've got the resources here. We have the lake, we have the mountains, we have all this stuff, and people can work from home, but they have no infrastructure to connect to. We need that infrastructure. If we don't get the door open, when will we ever have the infrastructure? And then looking at the spreadsheet, my first question is like at the bottom. For $30 to $50 a month on that internet, it doesn't tell you what the bandwidth is. It doesn't tell you how much you're getting versus CenturyLink and Blackfoot. And CenturyLink has been here for how many years? And what have they done for us? Finally, they're starting to move on a few places and take offers to people, but only because Blackfoot's here. I would really encourage you to sign this agreement. We need to get some competition. We need somebody to break the door open so that things can start to happen. Otherwise, we're trapped by who's here. And Montana Internet can partner with Blackfoot just like T-Mobile and start providing a hell of a lot better service to our not only our community, but to our rural community, both sides of the lake, up and down the lake, Winston, and those areas. So I really encourage you to sign the agreement.
We do have snapshots of the websites, Dave. You're more than welcome to them, they're up here. Anybody who wants them.
I'd like to say that this 8 mile outside the main city has to be pretty palatable for the commissioners. I mean, that's gonna reach a lot of folks, and even those that are a little higher on that side of the lake, coming towards the hills, would have line of sight to that also, might be able to hook up. Right now, these people that live like out in, just a mile out of town, they're just on a phone wire, and it's not working.
I would also like to say, a key component here is at least an option for those who live out of town to be able to connect to somebody besides Montana Internet. The service there is just awful. I was out at the Canton Church yesterday doing some work and coming back in. It's about 4.5 miles out to the S-curve, and there is a perfect line of sight to the water tower from there. So if there is an ability for the water tower, I know that Ray Creek is less than 8 miles away, the South Fork of Ray Creek, where we have a lot of houses. They all have line of sight to the water tower. All of a sudden, this becomes an option to get good internet service to them. And I think that reaching outside of this business area right here is important to the county.
Okay, I'll speak. One thing I do want to make sure that the commission understands and the general public understands, and I have to appreciate what Scott said, they are an enterprise data company. That's what they focus on. You're not you do not focus on residential customers. You do provide a service. It's not necessarily a very good service, but it's a service that is better than what we have for many people. Comparing that wireless service, at least from your rates on your website, when you compare that to urban areas, that's a pretty bad service and a pretty high price for it. Now, we have to realize that we're in a rural community, so there's certain things that we have to accept. It does put us at a bit of a competitive disadvantage. So what has been happening, has been poor, if not worse than poor. Our internet has been getting worse and worse. I do have a question. Going forward, are your rates for your wireless broadband, is the website up to date, or is that a potential 8 megs for $135 a month?
No, so these are, let's see here, 8x2.
I didn't print, well, I think I did print all the pages,
Yeah.
but they're not under you there, Scott. You're welcome to them.
Yeah. Okay, so I can tell you that,
Here's the rest of it, it's not much more.
right. So I can tell you that these internet prices, they look right to me.
Okay.
And they are high, for residential customers,
Right.
but they're dedicated bandwidth. And so what he spoke to, one person gets on the computer, or everyone in the neighborhood gets on the computer, it's a shared internet, and it gets clouded with traffic at certain points. Because we sell this business class internet, it's dedicated. This is your bandwidth, you're the only one that can drive on the road. So it's more expensive, but it's a different product.
Yes,
You know,
I agree.
It'd be like paying a toll, to drive on a 5-lane highway with, everyone else can drive on, or paying a toll to drive on a 2-lane highway that only you can drive on. And so I can tell you that it's a better fit for our business customers. So the vast majority of our salespeople and our organization is just focused on how do we sell services to businesses, because it's better fit. Doesn't mean we don't want residential customers, it just means they probably have a cheaper option that's a better fit for them.
Right.
Such as a shared internet. You know.
And that's, I think the big key to it was, when you first came in, we were looking for anything because we did not have a data backhaul other than wireless at that point.
Right.
The one thing I do want to commend you and CenturyLink and everybody else, we now have broken through a certain amount of levels. Now we do have a fiber backhaul, which has somewhat opened up the whole conversation. Again, you're very good for business enterprise systems. That's what you guys do and do well. And if nothing else, this whole weight has moved from having 0 access to fiber backhaul into potentially 2, maybe even 3 options. That is a substantial improvement over where we were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming from your conversation that you would then be probably buying some of that bandwidth through CenturyLink, or would you be working with Zayo?
That's not 100% clear yet,
Okay,
because we haven't contracted for it.
right.
But we have a preference
But
there.
that's really what this is going, is at this point now you have commitments, so you can go out and start actually having,
We have
legitimate.
we have a thesis on what we're gonna do.
Okay.
And so we've done kind of the back of the napkin math to say, okay, this would make sense if we have the county.
Right.
And it's not gonna make sense without the county.
Right.
Just because there's a limited number of businesses and large organizations in the community that will utilize our service, and we can't do this based off of might utilize our service. We have to do this off of we know that they want to utilize our service.
I agree, there's a business model to it.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but we don't purport to be the best option for residential customers. Now, for a home office, someone who's working from home and possibly their company is paying for their internet bandwidth because they're a remote worker. and their company is probably not gonna bat an eye at paying $150 for dedicated internet circuit that they really need to work from home. And Blackfoot might be a great solution for some of those folks. That's I guess a response to that, concern.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to introduce myself and request a time to talk prior to any vote. My name is Dean Nelson. I am the Global Relationship Manager for CenturyLink for counties, cities, and all schools in Montana. And I'm the one who responded largely to what Scott has presented.
I would like to hear from Dean if it's good with the commission.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to have as much information on the table as we can have.
Do you want me to stand, or do you want me to?
Whatever you want to do.
Stand in here? Well, first off, Scott, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Scott works in the channel program for Blackwater, which means he resells other people's services, in this case
Blackfoot.
primarily. I'm sorry, Blackfoot. Resells primarily other people's services, in this case it would probably be CenturyLink, because we're the one that brought fiber in. It's been a long time coming. CenturyLink spent $80 million this last summer bringing fiber to small communities across Montana. We're here now, and we spent the money. We brought 24 strands of fiber into Townsend. Each one of those strands of fiber could be configured technically up to 144 gigabits. Typically, we do it for either 1, 2.5, or 10, depending on the technology, but the bottom line is that fiber is more than enough that you will see for the next 10, 15 years. We have a robust channel program. The channel program means that people like Clearfly, like Blackfoot, like other vendors can use our backbone and sell local services. I don't quite understand why Blackfoot needs to have some sort of a design win for the county, because I don't see that our services don't require Montana Hydraulics to sign up for you to be able to sell something to the county. And so I'm encouraging the county to take a look at this as a truly competitive situation is one where the health center can buy services from one vendor, Montana Hydraulics can do from another vendor, the county can from another vendor, et cetera, and there's no reason why you can't continue to do that. I don't see why there has to be there's no major build here. What I proposed to the county was to take the $475 you're spending currently on a copper-based system and take it to 100 meg. That takes it, the price up somewhat, but I'd like to commend the commissioners on agreeing to sign the MOU with the state that enables us to come up with pricing. You are then buying off of a state price list, which frankly is going to be cheaper than any of our resellers can come up with. The price for 100 meg goes to $800. That is the standard price to agencies across the state who have that right to buy off the state contract. We would migrate from the $475 to $800 without termination penalties. You signed an agreement just last year with us, and we have, like any company, we have termination liabilities involved if you decide you want to break that agreement. So we would move to that 100 meg circuit here in the county. That's one issue. The next issue is telephone service. You shouldn't be spending $55 for a phone line. On the state rate card, you spend $23.99. That is less than half the price of what you're looking at in this other proposal. I'm also, I don't know, are there any other questions that people have? There's a number of different things we can do for you. Your phone